welcome. Thank you for joining me today to find out some more information about our new online resource, Consider the Source. This is a resource provided by the New York State Archives and the Archives Partnership Trust. We been working on this for several years. COVID kind of put us off about a year or so, but it's ready, it's finished. We're hoping that many teachers will start using it for the fall. This is just a brief introduction. It's going to be geared towards the middle school level. So all the examples I'll be showing you are middle school examples. I thought that would be most helpful for those who were looking to maybe be able to use the resource relatively quickly to see what they could bring right into their classrooms. This is the home page. You can see that the main things are you can browse historical records, access learning activities, and build and share your own learning activities. I'm going to log out for 1 second. If you aren't logged in, you still can browse the records. If you find a record you like, you can't do anything on the site with it unless you're registered with an account, but you can right click and you can copy the image, put it into a Word document or Google Doc, or you could save the image and use it up on your smart board, however you want to use it in your classroom. So the images are all available, the documents are all available for you to use, but in order to use the website, the full functionality, you have to register. And you'll get a message in all the spots where you try to do something and you're not logged in or you're not registered. So to register, you click here. The only thing we take from you as the teacher is your email address and your name. So that's the only information we save on our server, and your IP address, wherever you're accessing from. It's kept on a secure server and it's not shared. And that is the only information we keep. We don't keep any student data. However, we have had some interactions with some school districts already, and they wanted us to sign a 2D ed law agreement, and we are willing to do that. We ran it by our attorney, and we are able to do that because we really don't collect any data, and we'll sign off on that on your agreements if you need that in order for your teachers to be able to use it with their students. And I'll show you how the students submit their answers in a way that is not kept on in any of our servers. So that's not an issue. The other thing to quickly note is make sure you can access this from your school district computers. You know, they have all those filters, and sometimes sites that are fine are tagged as, we've had ours tagged as a gambling site for some reason. So in a couple of districts. So just make sure you can access it. Your students can access it if they're going to be using it at a computer lab or using the computer Chromebooks or whatever. Just make sure that it's been freed up by your IT. And if it's not, you can just go to them and ask them to open it for you. That's just a little side note to make sure that it's accessible. So with that, this resource tab up here has the quick links to getting started, using primary sources. Quick click there. This is where we have some tools on helping you bring primary sources into your classroom if you're not familiar with doing that already. It's also where we've put our older resources that were available on our other websites prior. These have been developed over the last 20 years or so. Some teachers really like them, so we wanted to have them in their entirety here, so you can enter them this way. But these activities are also available through the browse and this button here too as well. So the other thing you can access here is Graphic Organizers Student Research Award. That's a program we have for grades 4 through 12. It's similar to History Day, but it's only for New York State students. It's primary source research, project-based, and students submit their projects. The deadline's July 1st, which makes it a lot easier for teachers to be able to help students with it in the classroom. There's a deadline is farther out. And it's just a great program. So if you click there, you'll get a link to the guidelines and information about that if you want to learn more. The magazine, the New York State Archives has a magazine, comes out quarterly. I create an educator guide with every issue, and you can access those here. And the article is available for free for the part that I do the educator guide for, so you can have full access without having to pay any money. So let's see here. anything else? Professional learning. So these webinars were up there. I'm going to provide links to the recorded session. So if you want to share this or go back and look at it, it'll be available to anybody who goes to the professional learning page and clicks on the link, and it'll be uploaded to YouTube, so you can watch this again if you need to or want to share it. Now, in order to once you register, I'm going to log in and show you. Once you register, it'll bring you to your activities page. You won't have anything on here till you copy or create something, but here's where all your activities will be. So every time you log in, this is where it'll bring you. So from here, you can access your activities, edit them. You can share them through Google Classroom or via email. All the activities have a link. So if you use Schoology or another platform, you can copy the link and assign it to your students through whatever platform it is that you use. The way it works is the students fill out the answers, and at the end they put their name. And if you create your classes, which I'll show you in a second, they can put what class they're a part of. So if they're period 1 social studies, they'll click that, and then they save it as a PDF, and then they send it to you either via Google Classroom or email, however you've instructed them to do so, or however you interact with your students for online learning. We don't save the PDFs, the student saves them and sends them to you. So that keeps us from having to deal with the personal information, student information. So here's the My Classes section. So you would just add all your sections here. So when the student fills out the lesson, the answers to questions, they'll have an option to select the correct class that goes with the one that they attend. It will help you with sorting the answers as you get them from the students. And then you have your My Account information. You can change your password here or any of your information, but that's basically all that's there. We also provided a link to the How to Create an Activity, since you're in the My Activities section there. And these are just quick directions on how you put together the different types of learning activities. And I'm going to show you this in this demonstration, but this is just a quick reference guide to creating the learning activities. All right, so if you want to browse, comes up, you can browse by topic here. And so let's see, I wanted to make one quick comment. If you're a 6th grade or dealing with 6th grade teachers, I know that's global, but we do have some global primary sources to offer. So I just wanted to point that out as we go through here. There are many visuals from the turn of the century that were taken all over the world as instructional slides by state ed for teachers across the state. So we've digitized all of those. So you have access to those. And there's some of like ancient Greece, ancient Rome, some of the ruins. So there are things here that you can use in the 6th grade classroom to try to bring some primary sources into your 6th graders. So I wanted to make sure I commented on that before I went forward. So if you browse, we have a lot of Dutch documents. I don't know if you know, the New York State Archives holds all the Dutch records from the early colonial period. And we have a lot of them translated and then transcribed on here so that they're easy to access for students and teachers. So I'm going to go to this contract between Kilian van Rensselaer and one of the individuals who came to settle on his patroonship here in Rensselaer, in this area. It's in Dutch, not just regular Dutch, Old Dutch, but it has been translated. So if you see this little transcript button here, if you push on that, click on that, it's translated by page. And so you have, for each page, the students can read what is actually on here. So that's handy to have, easy to access the documents. What's nice about this document, I wanted to point it out, is, we often have conversations about, and in the curriculum, what was a patroonship? How did it work? And so this document is what the contract between the patroon and whoever was settling on his land would have signed in agreement of what the patroon was going to provide and what the worker was going to provide for the patroon. So it's a good example of how the system worked in a primary source. So I just wanted to point out that we do have that along with a lot of other Dutch documents. So if you wanted to, if you scroll down, if there's an activity already created it'll show up down here. So if you click on that, it takes you to the activity page. And on this page, it has teacher instructions and some historical background, has a glossary. So not everyone has this, but when the person created the lesson, this is everything that they created with the lesson. You look at the student view. So this is what your students would see. If you give them this, you would give them this link. Once you copy it to your account, you assign this to your students, and they have the document, and they also have the transcript here. And they can zoom in on the document. Not that would be helpful here, but they can, helpful on like photographs and things. But here's the questions that we have to go with this lesson. Now, if you want to use this lesson and assign it to your students, you have to copy it to your account. You have to rename it. You can pick something similar, but it cannot be exactly the same name as the one that we have here. So you could just put True Contract, copy, and all the information that's currently in that lesson is saved. So you have all of that here. You can change any of this, and then you save, continue. Here's the document with all the pages. You can add, not that you would do it on here, but you can add like little icons to draw the student's attention, and you can type things and it would get saved to the document. So if it was a photograph and you wanted to draw your student's attention to certain parts of the photograph or ask them questions about certain parts, you can do all of that here using these icons, and it will save to the lesson. If you wanted to include more documents, you can add more from our site, or you can upload your own. So if you have a JPEG of document that you want to create a lesson with, you can upload that in the learning activity that you're creating. And it'll be available to you and your students. And then I'll show you, if you make this public, it gets shared with all the other teachers who are on the site, and then they can also use your lesson too. So it's a great collaboration tool in that way. So here's the introduction page. This is where you would edit any of that information. If you wanted to add something, take something away. You can also write a conclusion for your students. If there's something you want them thinking about before they come to class the next day, you might want to write that in this box. And then here's notes to other teachers, or if you're going to keep this just for yourself, you want to make notes about how you're going to teach the lesson, you can put that in right here as well. So then there's the question page. We have them divided up: observation, analysis, and synthesis. And we've pre-populated it, all of them with the basic questions. But then, as you see, we've added some document-specific questions to this one. So you can keep all of these. You can delete any of them that you want. You can move them around. You can add new ones. So you full reign to do whatever you want here to make this lesson, more suitable for your students and your purposes. And then here is where you would publish or make it public. If you publish it, it's now available for your students to complete. If you make it public, it's also now available on the Access Learning Activities to other educators who are browsing the learning activities. So it'll show up and they'll see it, and they can't change yours, but they can copy yours and then change it and make it their own. So the other thing is I want to mention, I see somebody just commented about adding local documents, and our efforts are, we really want to make this a more complete resource. So we're going to be reaching out to historians. I'm presenting at the Historians Conference to get local historians. I know they're always looking to ways to get their documents into the hands of teachers. Teachers are always looking for those documents, but there always seems to be a challenge in getting that exchange to happen. So we're hoping that historians can send us digitized versions of resources that they feel are helpful for teachers in the classroom, and then we can make them available on here as well. But in the meantime, teachers can add those local resources to their learning activities as well. So many different ways to bring in that local perspective. All right, I'm not going to publish or share because I didn't change this really in any way. But that's how you take an activity that's existing and copy it into your account, and then edit it and make it yours to be able to share with your students. All right. Now, for accessing learning activities. So this browse page looks very similar. The only couple of differences, you can sort by grade level. So you can actually pick all the learning activities that are appropriate for middle school. And we have many of ours are at that middle school level. That's mostly what I taught when I was teaching in the classroom. So a lot of what I've created is middle school level. And then you can also further refine your search. So you can pick a topic that you can then, let's see here, we pick Civil War. So these are the lessons we have that are middle school and Civil War related. And then let's see here, took some notes here on how to best tone this down. So we have individual documents. A lot of those are interpreting the evidence. So basic document analysis lesson. But then we have, let's see here. We have many letters that were from a family in Putnam County. The father and 2 sons served in the war. And so we've digitized many of their letters. They're transcribed, so they're printed. And then we have a lesson that revolves around that family's experience in the Civil War. So I'll quick show you how that works. So this is the teacher view again. These are the documents that are part of the lesson. Here's the overview for the teacher. If you look at the student view, you get a historical context, tells you a little bit about a little bit of a Civil War background, and then also the Penny family, who they were. And then the students are going to kind of piece together what their experience was like using the documents. So we have muster roll abstracts for the Penny family, telling you how old they were when they enlisted, all that information. For the 3 soldiers, we have a political cartoon that kind of goes hand in hand with a letter that was written by one of the brothers about his experience on the Potomac before the war really began, when they were just sitting on both sides. And this political cartoon illustrates that. And then we have the letters. And so this is the nice thing about breaking it apart. If you have multiple documents, the system allows you to have a narrative box wherever you want to put one. So if you want the students to look at the document, they can look at the transcript here. But you can also have it a little bit easier accessible as they answer the questions. So they're reading the document, and then here's where they're answering the questions based on what's in the document. So this one has a few letters with it. And again, if you copied this to your account, if this is too much for your students, or you wanted to just give them an excerpt from the letter, you can edit this box, you can edit the questions, you can take out some documents, you can add in different documents. So you could use this as a base to start making your lesson, but you don't have to use everything that's in this one. You can tailor it however you want for your students. So it's a nice part of the website, is that you have full control to make your lesson however you want it, tailored to your classroom. And even you have different classrooms, so you could assign different lessons to your period 3 than you would your period 6, or however you would want to do it. So, but that's an example of a learning activity with multiple documents that you would access through here. And we also have another big topic for middle school is slavery in New York. So not just slavery, but slavery in New York, and how it came to an end in New York, and what it was like for enslaved individuals in New York. Let's see here. So we do have the slave code from 1730. And it's a script written document, but if you look, we have the transcript. And the other thing is this lesson breaks it into pieces. So the students can look at this first part and answer the questions that go with that first part. And here's the second part, and then questions that are just answered by reading this part. So it chunks it out for them to make it a little bit more digestible. And you can do that with any document that you provide for your students through these learning activities. So it kind of gives you an idea of what enslaved life was like in New York you know, in the colonial period, not much different really than it was in the South as far as their rules and how they were controlled and not, you know, not given any freedom. And so that's very evident in this document here. Let's see here. I think I just go right here real quick. Works. We have a larger learning activity around slavery in New York that takes students through the beginnings of slavery all the way through to the end of slavery in New York, so that they can look at the primary sources and really determine for themselves kind of what slavery was like in New York and how it ended. So another resource there as well. And then in the build and share section, you can create learning activities from scratch. So you can either start with an activity type if you already have in mind what you want to create. But I think the easier thing to do is probably to find a document over here first, unless you have ones that you're uploading, obviously. But just so I can give another example here. So if you go to World War II, here is a broadside that was published by General Electric for the government's National Nutritional Program, trying to encourage people to eat healthy, but also to choose their food wisely, you know, for support of the war effort. So if you wanted to create it from here, you would just hit create an activity with this document and pick the kind of activity you want, and then you just get a blank slate to create on. And you would go through the steps to create the activity that way. So two other things I want to quick show you before I open it up to any questions that you might have is, let's see here. We have a weighing the evidence or evaluating the evidence learning activity. And so it's a scale, and you would pick the documents that you want the students to analyze and then have two sides of an issue. And they would drag the item to the side, and then we can see the blow up of the item that either supports or goes against the issue. So here it's support child labor against child labor, and so they would just drag it to the side, and then, you know, whichever side is heavier weighted. It kind of gives a good visual for students when they're really thinking about, you know, which side has the better argument kind of thing. Then they have questions to answer, and then this one asks them to write a paragraph either in support or against using evidence from the documents. And the other one is geographical reasoning. So we have lots of map templates like this. We have New York State, the United States, and then we have different hemispheres of the world. But what this one allows you to do is choose documents that would be for certain areas on the map. So a student view looks like this. This one's the Erie Canal. I did include a map of the Erie Canal for them to look at that kind of gives you where all the places are, which would help them be able to determine where to put the document. But like you click on this one, it says it's from Lyons. You can find that on the map, and then the student will drag it to where it was located on the map. And then there's some analysis questions as well that go along with those documents. So I think in a nutshell, that is what I wanted to show. I know it's kind of a quick overview, but I wanted to give you a good idea of what the site can do without taking up too much of your time.